African Export-Import Bank will soon establish its regional headquarters for the Caribbean and the Americas in Barbados very soon. Benedict Orama, president and chair of the board of directors at the Afreximbank, confirmed this at the 30th anniversary celebration holding in Accra, Ghana. He also said it's approved $1 billion to support Caribbean states.
11 CARICOM states have so far joined the membership of the bank through signature of the partnership treaty. And in a few weeks, we will formally launch the operations of the bank's Caribbean office in Barbados. And we are working together with the CARICOM to create a Caribbean Exim Bank, which will be a subsidiary of African Export-Import Bank. We are connecting African businesses with opportunities in the Caribbean and Caribbean businesses opportunities in Africa. We are working with some African and Caribbean airlines to commence commercial operations between the two regions. An Afreximbank board has approved an amount of $1 billion to support the CARICOM, with plans to double this in the near future, when all CARICOM states sign on. We do this not because it's merely a nice thing to do, but because a united Africa and the Caribbean present a most potent force that can confront the exigencies of now and the challenges of tomorrow. A new middle passage is emerging, one underpinned by trade, investment, and socio-cultural exchange, correcting the ills of slavery and fragmentation. We are supporting African investors to build ports, roads, and power plants in the Caribbean. We are promoting cross-acquisition of banks. Our Afreximbank is so proud to be home to some interns from Caribbean, and this has been happening since 2021. And we thank the Caribbean leaders here with us for their support in this. Your Excellencies, Honorable Prime Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare to face the new world of opportunities, challenges and threats over the next 30 years, we do so on a stronger footing of over 60 participating states whose aspirations are our responsibilities.
All right, Arise business correspondent and anchor of the Arise Exchange, Boason Omofaye. He is live in Accra. Boason, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for being with us. So, I mean, what are some of the facts around the 3 decades of the Afreximbank that the Development Finance Institution is speaking about, as well as its future?
Well, Rotus, you know, the Afreximbank President Benedict Orama spoke about the 30 years, the milestones of the DFI.
Yes, keep going. I can hear you. Go right. We can hear you clearly. Go right ahead.
Rotus?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Keep going. We can hear you.
Yes, Rotus, yes, I was saying that Afreximbank president delivered a very lengthy speech, and you expect that for over 30 years of this organization, which was initially formed, the OAU meeting back in Abuja sometime in June of 1991, President Ibrahim Babangida was the Nigerian leader at that point in time when the African Union, the OAU back then, believed there is a need for a specialized financial institution to support what the African OAU was doing back then, now the African Union. So it's been 30 years, 3 decades coming down the line. We've seen about 4 presidents of the Afreximbank, 2 of them Nigerian-born leaders, and the current president, who is in his 2nd term, has led this particular specialized institution to a new horizon that had never been seen before, such that right now the Afreximbank is about to become a specialized agency of the African Union in terms of trade finance across the continent. Rotus, back to you.
Great stuff. Can you tell us more about the new handshake between the Afreximbank and the Caribbean?
Well, now this is what I call the new horizon. This has never happened before. You're talking about 20 million Africans on the Caribbean islands on the ocean. Then you're talking about the continent, about 1.8, 1.9 billion people. So put together, you're talking about roughly 2 billion people. So the initial $1 billion that Afreximbank is putting on the table to support CARICOM, which is the Caribbean community, will be a new game. Of course, the Afreximbank is planning to open a new office, boots on the ground, in the Caribbean in the next few days. Out of the 6 deals that were signed here today, about 2 of them specifically relate to the Caribbean community. For example, an Afro-Caribbean marketplace, which will be a tourism center and a marketplace for Africans, will be opened on the what you call the Grand island of the Bahamas there in the Caribbean islands. Then, of course, you're going to have a whole lot more trade finance. So Maya Motley, the president or the prime minister of Barbados, spoke about the need to strengthen telecommunications infrastructure, strengthen airline operations, air transport between Africa and the Caribbean as well. So there's quite a whole lot more to do. But for the first time, the whole Caribbean is so happy that apart from the rhetoric, action is now being taken and being supported with finance by Afreximbank for this relationship and this handshake between the continent and our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. Rotus?
Excellent stuff. Well, can you tell us about the delegation from Nigeria at this historic event of the Afreximbank celebrating 30 years?
Well, officially speaking, I'm sure you know, Rotus, that Nigeria's former president, His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, will be here at this event. He's one of the pillars behind the African Union, as well as the African Export-Import Bank. Apart from that, we'll find a few here. Nigeria's former Vice President, Asambo, was here, and he's been here, he's still here as we speak. The immediate past Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment, Otubani Adebayo, is also here. You had a few other government, a few former ministers here, and a few state governors as well. I've run into the president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as a former president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, as well as the Director General. So you've got quite a number of Nigerian delegates who are here, not in the official capacity of the new administration of the Tinubu's government, by the way, but those who have always had a relationship with Afreximbank. But if you look at the business side, Aliko Dangote, we reported that yesterday, was in a fireside chat, and he spoke about what the new refinery is doing. In a couple of minutes from now, Tony Elumelu, who is the chairman of Transcorp, will be speaking at a fireside chat as well. He's sitting on a panel. And also very soon, we'll be hearing from the deputy managing director of UBA, who will be signing a deal at the AFCFTA Secretariat, not far from this location, also here in Accra. So on the business and investment side, you've got a whole lot of the private sector in Nigeria being part of this. Owando Nigeria, for example, is one of the sponsors of this particular event year in, year out. So as far as the business sector is concerned, yes, you've got boots on the ground, as it were. I've also run into the managing director of Development Bank of Nigeria, as well as Nexim Bank, as well as other folks from the investment banking community. Some of them you know already. Rotus, you've interviewed them on your show, this particular show, as well as myself. So the private sector, finance, they are here on the ground because in terms of exposure, Afreximbank has got a whole lot of exposure to Nigeria. Out of that $100 billion it's done over the last 3 decades. Rotus.
Great stuff, Boason. And I'm sure there's lots to look forward to tomorrow for day 3, yes?
Rotus, I'm not too sure I picked that correctly from you.
I said there's a lot to look forward to tomorrow for day 3. More conversations and more discussions around improving trade, and as long as the celebrations continue.
Yes, of course, that continues tomorrow. Tonight is going to be a Pan-African Development Awards tonight. It's something very new on the menu that the Afreximbank is putting together. It's going to be an evening event at about 6 o'clock local time. We'll also cover that as well as far as our Rise News channel is concerned, providing end-to-end coverage of this particular important event. Rotus, back to you.
All right, great stuff, Boason. Boason, finally, I mean, we're running out of time. There's optimism on improving trade relations between the African nations, right? That's what the Afreximbank is going to be facilitating going forward.
Well, there's a whole lot more to do on the African continent, Rotus, if you agree with me. It's taking 30 years, according to Benedict Orama, for the companies, for the DFI's total asset to grow from $3 billion to $6 billion. And he says it's not going to take that long at all to cross to a bigger total assets and whatever. $100 billion over a 30-year period. It's a big figure, but if you consider what we need on the African continent, it's still a whole lot. We're just scratching the surface. The potential is huge. The panel we just came out from right now, which was that of the heads of state and governments on the continent, we're speaking about how to break down the barriers, how to think about Africa first in terms of intra-Africa trade rather than nationalism. So this is the whole discussion why African businesses, investors, and finance, how to strengthen our institutions. The president of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, gave a very fair speech. I'm sure you listened to that. He was not interested in the global ratings and foreign capital. He's asking foreign sovereigns to ensure that African banks, Africa finance, will mobilize domestic capital so that when the next global shocks comes around, like the 2008 financial market crisis or the COVID-19 pandemic, we can depend on ourselves. He spoke about why we need to strengthen institutions such as the Afreximbank, the FDB, the trade finance organizations across the continent. That we need to do a whole lot more of this, and I really agree with President Nana Akufo-Addo that there's a need for Africa to prepare itself, to lean on itself. The same message was what Mayor Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, spoke about, as well as other speakers here since we started yesterday. Rotus.
Great coverage from you, Boason, and the rest of the team, Nkechi Nana as well. A Rise News team live in Accra covering the 30th anniversary of the Afreximbank. Boason, thank you so much. We'll, of course, be catching up with you much later in the week.